John and Patsy Ramsey married in 1980. Their son Burke was born in 1987, followed by JonBenet in 1990. In 1991, the Ramseys moved from sunny Atlanta to Colorado. John was doing great as the CEO of Access Graphics, and Patsy just defeated cancer and was enjoying being a full-time mom with 2 gorgeous kids. Patsy was proud to be Miss West Virginia of 1977, a passion she shared with her sister Pamela, who became Miss South Charleston in 1980. Then in 1994, JonBenet won her first competition at the Colorado State All-Star Kids pageant, before stealing the show at the Little Miss Charlevoix. She then won the titles at Little Miss Colorado, America's Royale Miss, and National Tiny Miss Beauty. On December 17, 1996, she was crowned Little Miss Christmas of Colorado. 3 days later, with friend Bill McReynolds playing Santa, the Ramseys held the annual Christmas open house. An estimated 1,500 to 2,000 people stopped by on December 21st and December 22nd. The busiest Christmas ended when the Ramseys attended their friends, the Whites, Christmas dinner party, got home late around 10 p.m., opened Christmas gifts, and went to bed. However, the Ramseys woke up to a different world the next morning when Patsy found a ransom note, and JonBenet was gone. I will now let them tell you the story.
I started downstairs. There were pieces of paper lying on one of the runs of the stair. I kind of turned around and looked at it to see what it was and started reading the first couple lines. It wasn't registering, but somewhere it said, "We have your daughter." I just bounded back up the steps and threw her door open, and she was not in her bed. I remember screaming to John.
She had the note, and I read it, just, quickly trying to take everything in, and I screamed.
I mean, you don't know what to do. What do we do? I don't, I mean, you're just...
I don't know where to start.
You don't know what to do. You're just insane.
What's your name? Are you Kathy Ramsey or the brother? Oh my God! Please. Okay, I'm sending an officer over, okay? Do you know how long she's been gone? No, I don't. Please, we just got out. Did you were here? Oh my God, please. Okay, I am, honey. Please. Take a deep breath. Please, okay? Hurry. Kathy?
John Ramsey was busy getting together $118,000 in ransom money.
He seemed nervous but in control.
The house was crowded. 2 victims' advocates arrived. In addition, Mrs. Ramsey has called some close friends and her pastors. Burke Ramsey was by now awake and taken to a family friend's house, away from the scene. According to the police report, no one in the house made any obvious comment that the deadline had been missed. Detective Patterson asked for unrehearsed handwriting samples to compare John and Patsy's writing with the ransom note. John quickly responded.
They have 2 standard-sized pads of paper, he said. This one is Patsy's and this one is mine. We use it to keep notes by the telephone.
Patterson and Wheatson took the notepads to the police station to be analyzed, leaving just one detective in charge of a house full of people that is also a crime scene. According to her report, she needed help keeping John Ramsey's mind occupied. She suggested to a family friend that he and Mr. Ramsey search the house from top to bottom. John Ramsey immediately went to the basement. His friend followed.
To me, That's a red flag. Big red flag.
almost as if he knew exactly where to go. Mr. Ramsey said he noticed an open window in the basement. He then walked into a small room the family called a wine cellar. He opened the door, and that's when he said he saw something.
JonBenet was lying on her back. She was wrapped in a blanket. Her favorite Barbie nightgown was just nearby. Her hands was up over her head, and there was a ligature secured to both wrists loosely. There was black duct tape covering her mouth.
And on the palm of her hand, a heart drawn in red ink.
John Ramsey pulled the duct tape off, threw it aside, and then he picked up her body and carried her upstairs.
And that is pretty much what the police don't want to happen in that situation.
The girl's father picking up and moving it to another room, another floor of the house. You cannot have worse contamination to the crime scene.
The following date, the detective wanted to question the Ramseys more thoroughly. According to police documents, Patsy Ramsey's doctor said she was too distraught, too medicated to talk to anyone. John Ramsey did talk, accompanied by a friend who is also an attorney. The Boulder PD felt the Ramseys were not fully cooperative.
The police was very frank about their inability to get questions answered by the Ramseys.
And that is when they needed it the most.
It's that old saw. The first 48 hours of a homicide case are absolutely critical to the case being solved. The detectives were able to interview JonBenet's older brother, Burke. He heard nothing. Nothing woke him up in the middle of the night.
Burke told Patterson he learned his sister was missing when he had wakened the following morning.
He came across to me as being very open and honest. A parent whose child has been harmed in some fashion or murdered, I will be demanding to meet with the police.
The Ramseys did not demand to meet with police. Instead, the police were told they could submit written questions to the Ramseys' attorneys. That raised an eyebrow to the Boulders PD.
Another detective saw him on the phone, apparently talking to his pilot, telling the pilot to get the plane ready. We were getting out of here, and at that time, he was told at that moment, well, you are not going anywhere.
The Ramseys stayed, and later moved in with friends, while police took over that house. When the Ramseys, still in mourning, refused to be interrogated, police said they wouldn't release JonBenet's body for burial until they changed their mind.
And we said, oh boy, the worm has turned. What are these people about? And it changed the whole chemistry and how we looked at the police. They were not there to help us. They were there to hang us.
What do you think so far? Did the rich, sick parents abuse their daughter? Or did the police destroy what's left of a grieving family? You can decide after watching these clips again.
John Ramsey was busy getting together $118,000 in ransom money.
He seemed nervous, but in control.
The house was crowded. 2 victims' advocates arrived. In addition, Mrs. Ramsey has called some close friends and her pastors. Burke Ramsey was by now awake and taken to a family friend's house, away from the scene.
Let me ask you, if the Ramseys did just carry out this horrible crime, why would they ask their friends and pastor to come over for emotional support? Against the kidnapper's threat, the Ramseys called 911. We know there were at least 3 police detectives in the house, but they were criticized as not questioning why the kidnapper did not call. Wasn't that the police's job?
According to the police report, no one in the house made any obvious comment that the deadline had been missed.
We have all heard the 911 tape. Does Patsy sound strange? I don't think so. But let me show you what some experts said.
Jim Fitzgerald. He is exactly the right person to provide analysis.
There are many factors that are very interesting from a forensic and post perspective. Things were used. We have a kidnapping. What does it even mean? Where is the ownership?
She doesn't mention her daughter's name. She said, my daughter, my 6-year-old blonde.
Been the hardest call I ever took. And I think it was because there was something inside me that said something's not right.
You can decide if it is proper for an operator to call that call, something is not right. I was surprised when I watched the following CBS footage. When the experts spent 10 minutes discussing the hardly audible 6 seconds at the end of the 911 call. Experts played the highly enhanced tape and said they could hear John and Burke's voice. They called the Ramseys liars because the tape was the proof Burke did not stay in bed. But with the other voice so faint, Burke could have been talking to John while staying in bed. The worst part of the CBS case is that they did not tell the viewers the tape had been analyzed and decoded as Burke asking, "What did you find?" And John saying, "I am not talking to you." And Patsy saying, "Oh my Jesus." CBS did not mention these, so the material can be viewed as new evidence, with decoding the way CBS felt fits. Isn't that terrible?
Detective Patterson asked for unrehearsed handwriting samples to compare John and Patsy's writing with the ransom note. John quickly responded.
They have 2 standard-sized pads of paper, he said. This one is Patsy's and this one is mine. We use it to keep notes by the telephone.
When the police asked for unrehearsed handwriting samples, the Ramseys not only cooperated, John even gave the detective the 2 notepads they used. The notepads, police said, were used for the ransom note. If you don't call that cooperation, what do you call that?
Patterson and Wheatson took the notepads to the police station to be analyzed, leaving just one detective in charge of a house full of people that is also a crime scene. According to her report, she needed help keeping John Ramsey's mind occupied. She suggested to a family friend that he and Mr. Ramsey search the house from top to bottom. John Ramsey immediately went to the basement. His friend followed. John Ramsey immediately went to the basement. His friend followed.
To me, that's a red flag. Big red flag.
Almost as if he knew exactly where to go. Mr. Ramsey said he noticed an open window in the basement. He then walked into a small room the family called a wine cellar. He opened the door, and that's when he said he saw something.
To many people, a statement from an FBI agent like that can be the nail to the coffin. But how can the FBI agent call this a red flag? Do you have to search the top floor first when you were told, search from top to bottom, for it not to be a red flag? I am sure they were at the first floor living area when the police told them to start. The basement would be a logical place for police to start, so you can search from bottom up. And after seeing the open window, going to the wine cellar seemed to be the next logical step. Calling it a red flag is a red flag showing the FBI agent's bias. I don't know how big the basement is, but if John Ramsey was asked to check everywhere, they should go directly to the wine cellar? The question we should be asking is, why didn't the police check there? JonBenet's body is basically left in plain view.
JonBenet was lying on her back. She was wrapped in a blanket. Her favorite Barbie nightgown was just nearby. Her hands was up over her head, and there was a ligature secured to both wrists loosely. There was black duct tape covering her mouth.
And on the palm of her hand, a heart drawn in red ink.
John Ramsey pulled the duct tape off, threw it aside, and then he picked up her body and carried her upstairs.
And that is pretty much what the police don't want to happen in that situation.
The girl's father picking up and moving it to another room, another floor of the house. You cannot have worse contamination to the crime scene.
Ramsey should not have moved JonBenet's body, but he did not know she was dead. He did what any father would do. He tried to save her. He took off the tape over her mouth so she can breathe, and took her upstairs to try to save her. Sadly, he probably realized she was dead while carrying her upstairs, but it was too late. And did you know Charlie Brennan, the person in the last clip, is a reporter? The police allowed reporters to enter Ramsey's home, but blamed the Ramseys for having their friends over. Does that sound fair to you? From the arrival of the three detectives soon after Patsy's 911 call at 5:52 a.m., until John Ramsey found JonBenet's body around 1:30 p.m., police have questioned the Ramseys for 7.5 hours. They were given free access to the Ramsey home, provided with both Ramsey's handwriting samples, and given full cooperation. Remember, the detective asked John and friends to look for things out of the ordinary from top to bottom. She must have run out of questions. The police complained about Ramsey's refusal for an official interview. But does an interview has to be in the police station to be considered official? What do you call the 7 hours of questioning on December 26, 1996?
The following date, the detective wanted to question the Ramseys more thoroughly. According to police documents, Patsy Ramsey's doctor said she was too distraught, too medicated to talk to anyone. John Ramsey did talk, accompanied by a friend who is also an attorney. The Boulder PD felt the Ramseys were not fully cooperative.
The police was very frank about their inability to get questions answered by the Ramseys.
And that is when they needed it the most.
It's that old saw. The first 48 hours of a homicide case are absolutely critical to the case being solved. The detectives were able to interview JonBenet's older brother, Burke. He heard nothing. Nothing woke him up in the middle of the night.
Burke told Patterson he learned his sister was missing when he had wakened the following morning.
He came across to me as being very open and honest. A parent whose child has been harmed in some fashion or murdered. I will be demanding to meet with the police.
The Ramseys did not demand to meet with police. Instead, the police were told they could submit written questions to the Ramseys' attorneys. That raised an eyebrow to the Boulders PD.
Another detective saw him on the phone, apparently talking to his pilot, telling the pilot to get the plane ready. We were getting out of here, and at that time, he was told at that moment, well, you are not going anywhere.
This is another case of a misleading expert opinion. Wanting to travel the day after your daughter's murder does seem odd. However, if the killer is on the loose and you have a 9-year-old son and an emotional, unstable wife to protect, moving them to safety is anything but illogical. I think the Ramseys lost support when we were told about their refusal to cooperate. But we were not told John and Patsy voluntarily turned in their notepads and handwriting samples on December 26, 1996. We did not know they allowed police to question Burke more than once during the first 48 hours. We did not know they moved out and let the police take over their home. We did not know Patsy's doctor said Patsy was too sick and medicated to talk the next day. The devil lies in the details, right? But we were denied access to the details.
The Ramseys stayed and later moved in with friends, while police took over that house. When the Ramseys, still in mourning, refused to be interrogated, police said they wouldn't release JonBenet's body for burial until they changed their mind.
I wonder if anyone trying to hide the truth from the police would hand over their 9-year-old to the police for questioning. Why was the public still told that the Ramseys were not cooperative? I thought Burke was only allowed to talk to a child psychologist. But I found that Burke talked to police on December 27, 1996, and then again 2 weeks after. And he even testified in front of a grand jury in 1999. Burke was criticized for being too normal. So he must be happy for losing his sister? He must hate her? What do you expect a 9-year-old to react in losing his sister? He thought JonBenet was in heaven.
Published reports claims since there was no track in the snow outside of the Ramseys' home, the murder must have been committed by someone inside the house. There is a problem. Close examination of the crime scene photo today showed plenty of snow in the front yard, but virtually none in the back of the house. No snow, no footprints. Why would evidence like this be ignored? According to Sam Augustine, it is because the district attorney and the police believe from the start that the Ramseys have killed their daughter.
And we said, oh boy, the worm has turned. What are these people about? And it changed the whole chemistry and how we looked at the police. They were not there to help us. They were there to hang us.
During the first 48 hours of the JonBenet case, the police seemed to be quite incompetent. They failed to find the body. They failed to protect the crime scene. And their tunnel vision led them to many seemingly wrong directions. They believed there was no intruder because they did not find any footprints in the snow. But they failed to notice the backyard had no snow, and you can get to the broken window from the backyard. They thought the window was too small to enter, but this video showed how easy someone can get in.
Police said the basement window was too small for a man to crawl through. In this demonstration by Lou Smith, you can decide if it is too small.
Please take a look at this recording during Patsy's official interrogation. The police admitted they lied to Patsy so they can get her to confess. If you are the Ramseys, will you still have any confidence in the police?
How about the theory that this was an accident? JonBenet got up, or something happens, there's an accident, somebody...
You're going down the wrong path, buddy.
Okay, somebody accidentally, or somebody gets upset over bedwetting. That's one of the things that's been proposed. Okay.
Didn't happen. If she got up in the night and ran into somebody, it was somebody there that wasn't supposed to be there. I don't know what transpired after that, whether it was an accident, intentional, premeditated, or whatnot. But it was not one of her 3 family members that were also in that house. Period. End of statement.
Patsy Ramsey's lawyer probably wouldn't have earned that money if he hadn't run through what was going to happen in that interview. The police know they don't have a case unless they can get the Ramseys to confess.
If I told you right now that we have trace evidence that appears to link you to the death of JonBenet, what would you tell me?
Do you now know how easy it is to mislead you? Let me show you some picture taken from CBS's The Case of JonBenet special. We were shown interviews calling Burke strange and angry. We were told how Burke hit JonBenet with a golf club before. We were then shown this picture of feces under a Christmas tree after the murder. I thought it was disgusting, till I realized the Ramseys moved out after the murder, and Burke never would have the chance to poop like a dog under the tree. Does CBS know that? I'm sure they do. What does that picture in the show tell us? The police did a hell of a job securing the crime scene, and CBS won the medal for brainwashing. You may argue that the feces may be under the tree the night JonBenet went missing. That is the only night Burke could have done that. But if that is the case, you would have heard about it 20 years earlier. A DNA test could have proved if that is from the killer, or Burke, or someone or something else. Then a statement from Linda Hoffman, the housekeeper, shows feces found on JonBenet's bed. This was cleverly placed with the feces under the Christmas tree, so everyone accepted the bombshell evidence. But take a closer look. You will see it happened on a bedwetting night. I am not a child psychologist, but I know no one intentionally wets their bed. Does she know Burke put the feces there? Or could it be part of JonBenet's accident? If you search the web, you may realize how Linda Hoffman hated the Ramseys. John asked the police to check on her because she not only had access to the house, she needed money and tried to get a loan from them. I'm not sure if she got the loan, but the police cleared her because she had an alibi. She has the motive, the familiarity to the home, access to the home, which she may be able to share with others. She probably knows about the broken window in the basement and knows the Ramseys' Christmas itinerary. She claimed that Patsy has multiple personalities, moody, and testified to the grand jury that she believed Patsy killed JonBenet. She also challenged the state's ruling for a grand jury testimony so she can write it in a book. There may be a messy bedwetting she had to clean up, but she obviously missed the facts with her assumption. Too bad that statement was used to paint Burke as the monster brother. I remember reading the newspaper saying the ransom note proved the killer must be someone close to the Ramsey family. The note mentioned the $118,000 demand, which is the amount John got as his 1996 bonus. And the kidnapper mentioned a 99% chance of killing your daughter, which is similar to Patsy's victory over her 99% chance to die from the ovarian cancer. But now I learned Patsy was featured in a magazine about her fight with cancer. I am sure the 99% chance to die was mentioned somewhere there. And there were articles about Access Graphic. The journalist Chris Wolf, who later became a suspect, knew about it and may have shared with others. The housekeeper may have overheard and found letters or statements while cleaning the house. The police theory against Patsy was weak at best. But when you tell the grand jury about the evidence of possible prior sexual abuse, the parents are guilty no matter what. If the Ramseys felt like they were part of the community they loved, they soon found the community quickly turn against them after the murder. According to one ex-officer, the police would question people with the opening line, "The Ramseys say you did it." The Ramseys soon lost everything they had, including the $6.4 million equity they used to have and John's ability to work. Unknown to most people, the police took a hard stand on the Ramseys when they felt they did not cooperate enough. How can the Ramseys trust and respect the police when they felt they had done all they could, but the police were saying, no talk, no body? It must feel like salt on a wound.
You had the crime scene techs dusting for fingerprints, the family friends following behind, the tech spring cleaners like cleaning up after them. I mean, it was an impossible situation.
Did the police look in the wrong direction? When they turned a blind eye on evidence, of course you would see nothing. Did they blame the victims like in this video? Think really hard. If the police detective and technician allowed the Ramseys' friends to clean during evidence collection process, whose fault was it? Should you blame the Ramseys? Their friends or the police? A mistake the Ramseys made then was to have an interview with CNN. They pleaded for help to find the killer. What would you feel if you were the detective in charge?
There is a killer on the loose. I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's a he or a she. But if I were a resident of Boulder, I will tell my friends to keep your babies close to you. There's someone out there.
What happened was very sad for everyone involved. The police believed the Ramseys did it and considered looking elsewhere a total waste of time. The Ramseys hired their own investigator, and that did not sit well with the police. The intruder theory was overlooked because the spotlight was focused on the Ramseys. Let me present you with the suspect lineup, and you will be surprised. A few suspects surfaced based on the intruder theory. Bill McReynolds, a professor and family friend who looked like Santa, was high on the list. gave JonBenet a note, "You will receive a special gift after Christmas." He seemed to be hostile to Patsy at JonBenet's funeral, and he seemed to be in the media spotlight too much. While Bill's wife, Janet, wrote a play about a young girl is molested, tortured, murdered, and left in a basement. And there's another troubling fact. Bill and Janet's daughter was abducted and witnessed the sexual molestation of their friend on December 26, 1972. Another shocking fact linking McReynolds to the JonBenet's case is Bill's son, Jesse. He served a 2.5-year sentence in prison for conspiracy, aggravated robbery, and kidnapping, and had no alibi on the night of the murder. However, DNA cleared the McReynolds. Gary Oliva is another promising suspect. He is a convicted sex offender who had been seen hanging around the alleyway at the back of the house. He went to jail for raping a 7-year-old girl in Oregon. In March 1997, a tip came in about Oliva. He had called a friend on the 26th of December and sobbing hysterically, saying he had done something terrible to a little girl. A year later, he attended JonBenet's memorial service. 4 years later, and 2 weeks before Christmas, he was arrested on the Colorado University campus for trespassing. The police who made the arrest found a stun gun, a photo of JonBenet, and a note to her in his backpack. The third one hit a dead end 2 months after the murder when they found the dead body of Michael Helgoth. He was ruled to have shot himself the day after District Attorney Alex Hunter announced they were closing in on the killer. He had a pair of high-tech boots, which seemed to be the exact match from footprints found on the crime scene. He had a stun gun, which matched the mark on JonBenet's body. He had a baseball cap with the letters SBTC on it. And police found a videotape of a news story about the unsolved kidnap and murder of a 6-year-old girl. But again, it was a dead end when he died. Was he killed by his partner, who also killed JonBenet? We probably will never know. Another suspect was a freelance journalist named Chris Wolf. His girlfriend called the police and said he had stormed out of the house on Christmas night and came back the following morning with muddy clothes. He became furious when he saw news reports of JonBenet's death on TV. And he owned a sweatshirt with SBTC, which means Santa Barbara Tennis Club. He had written an article about John Ramsey's company, Access Graphics, and may have had access to information about his bonus. He was a friend of Bill McReynolds. He is like the man walking out of the forensic file on JonBenet's case. But police cleared him, and when he was mentioned in John Ramsey's book, he filed a defamation suit against the Ramseys. For that case, the Ramseys swore they did not kill JonBenet, and the judge threw out the case.
In deposition of that lawsuit, John and Patsy Ramsey were questioned under oath for the first time. John Ramsey has always defended his wife.
My wife, I would stake my life on the fact that she did not murder her child, she did not fake all of this nonsense, and she did not write this bizarre note.
Then it was Patsy Ramsey's turn.
I did not kill my daughter. I did not write the ransom note, and I don't know who did either of those things. And I'm not afraid to answer any questions from either you or from them or from the police department or for anyone else for that matter.
One of these shows talked about if the JonBenet case is a crime of passion. The crime itself may not be, but it has become the passion and obsession for many. The passion made many obvious evidences invisible. For example, I often wonder how they can know for sure if the ransom note was written with Patsy's pen. How many of you buy only one pen? If you buy a dozen, will you ever notice if someone took one from you? Can the housekeeper take one? Can someone take one during the open house 3 days before the murder? The police insisted that the ransom note was written with Patsy's pen and pad, but that assumption may be a mistake. And what upset me most is CBS's twisted presentation of the case. They did a demonstration of how an adult jumped out when shocked by a stun gun. Did they forget JonBenet was restrained, with tape over her mouth? They showed us how a new panty can contain touch DNA, but did not tell the viewers the DNA on JonBenet's panty was taken from a blood spot mixed with JonBenet's and an unknown Caucasian male. That was something known 2 weeks after the murder. However, in 1999, when forensic expert Henry Lee suggested the DNA may be the touch DNA from a factory worker, the police did plan to test all of Bloomingdale's workers in Hong Kong to rule that out. They gave that up because they know then people will ask them to test the dry cleaner, the mall clerk, and a DNA match will not bring the killer to justice. We can't say the DNA is not left by a Caucasian male working in Hong Kong's factory, but we can almost say for sure CBS intentionally misled the viewing public on that. Most crimes are good against evil, and usually the good side wins. The JonBenet case is divided into two sides, but instead of good versus evil, it is the side with the Ramseys and the side against them. Maybe that is why the case is still an unsolved mystery. With such a deep division between the two sides, the truth simply fell through the cracks. This is Ken Peters. Thank you for watching.
I can fly high in the sky, fly above the clouds with wings spread wide. With love so divine, you can fly with me. Let your heart be free to be with mine. There are rainy days, thunderstorms in our way, but don't give up. We can make it together. On the days you're down, all alone, feeling blue, look up to the sky.